everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Music Podcast once again, where today sitting in with me is Mr. Klaus Eichstadt. Klaus is the original guitarist for the longtime hard rock metal band Ugly Kid Joe. I just love saying the name of that band. Ugly Kid Joe had tremendous success in the early 90s when their first two records went double platinum. That first record, As Ugly As They Wanna Be, is an EP, and it happens to be the first EP to go platinum ever, which is a really cool distinction.
First debut EP.
Yeah.
Yeah, first debut EP.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. We didn't know that till years later, and we're like, oh, cool. We got something we can kind of say we were the first at or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
well, why not?
Totally. Klaus and Ugly Kid Joe are back, and they have a new record called Rad Wings of Destiny, and they are getting ready to go on a headlining tour across the U.S. starting on May 3rd. Klaus, it's great to have you, man.
Great to be here.
Man. I love the name, man. Rad Wings of Destiny. Huge Priest fan. I immediately bonded with that one. But you guys always do that. You got song titles, Stairway to Hell and Hotel California, and just every record seems to do that. But tell me, does the name come first for the record? Do you write the songs and then say, hey, where's the name, or what are we going to call this one? Or do you start with a name and then
no, we've always started with songs.
Okay.
And when it seems that there's enough songs for a record, then the talk of the record, and then it goes to the name of the record. And that's really fun because I have a list of like 50 names to this moment, and we usually, we narrow it down, and the list starts to get sent around by text message. And there's like a lot of like little moments where, of course, it starts to go south, where you just start making up really stupid names, and then we're not even being serious anymore. But that one was Wit came up with it, and it was obviously sticking with our theme, and it just, the ring is what got us. Now, honestly, there was a little bit of like, yeah, but no one's gonna know that record. It's not like it's a super famous record. And so we had a couple others that were maybe more famous records or titles, and the Rad Wings just won out because it was just had the ring. And once the artist started doing the art for it, is when it really started to come together. And we're like, okay, yeah, this is it. There's no going back now. And then now it's kind of like anything, the name becomes what it is, and it's the name of a record. So even if no one knows what record it was being the pun on, it still sounds rad, and it still is a record by a band we love, Judas Priest. And so if you want to research it, you'll figure it out, and that's fine with us too, and then maybe go listen to some old Priest while you're at it.
Go. And that's, I'm a huge Priest fan, and I love them all. But if I had to pick a favorite, that would probably be it, Sad Wings of Destiny. Nice. So yeah, it was great when I saw the name of the record. I'm like, that's great. And you guys, by doing that, you appeal to that hardcore fan like myself, where these guys know the deeper stuff. It's not named after one of the Pop Screaming for Vengeance or something like that.
Right.
So you're going deep on that one, and that's respect, totally.
Dude, Whit, our singer, is like the biggest Priest fan ever, and he goes way deep, and he had all the old records, Stained Glass. He's all about early Priest. And I mean, from day one, Rob's been his, probably one of his favorite singers. Rob Hubbard is probably arguably the greatest heavy metal singer ever. And you don't get any better. That's the dude. And so it was Wit was, it was, because I was like, oh yeah, I remember that Priest record, but again, it wasn't the big British Steel or Sweden. Right. So I was like, yeah, I know that one, but is anybody else going to know it? Well, you know it. And the last interview the guy totally knew it. So that's all it takes. That, again, well,
it's one of those, if you know, and a lot of people do know, which is cool. And of course you had Rob on the second record, Goddamn Devil. That had to be a thrill for Whit, especially, huh?
It was a thrill for all of us. It was the guy Rob was so nice. He was so great to work with. It was just one afternoon, evening, and he showed up because he's friends with our producer Mark Dodson, who did the new record, which is a huge thing because it's like, oh, Rad Wings of Destiny, the guy producing it produced Old Priest.
Yeah,
I don't think he produced that record, but he's worked on Old Priest records, and it was kind of a cool moment. But that's how Rob actually ended up in the studio. Was Mark said, "Hey, I'm friends with Rob. They're both English dudes from I don't know where in England, but near London probably, and had worked in Old Priest. So he was like, he's in town. I'm gonna ask him to come by." And he did. And I think Mark had it in his head, like, I think I'm going to get him to sing. And I think he had already planned the song too. Like, I think this would be the one. And when he asked Rob, we were probably too scared to ask Rob. Maybe Whit asked him. I don't know. Whit's not scared of really asking anybody anything, but maybe Mark asked. I don't know. But he said, hey, would you mind? And he's like, so we played him he's all, what song are you thinking about? So we played him Goddamn Devil. And I remember, we were all kind of like, oh shit, he's sitting there, he's listening to it, he's
right.
kind of doing the thing, and we're like, because he could say, "Nah, I don't want to sing on this," and I remember it was like he kind of started smiling, and he looked at us like with this kind of sinister look, goes, "I like the lyrics," and he went like that. We were like, and I'd love to sing on it. We're like, yes, and then he just started doing all that screaming, and at the way in, he did that little tail off thing. I believe in me, like it was all just ad libbed.
Yeah.
We did like 4 takes. He just ad libbed stuff at the end, and we picked the ones we liked, and it was, I mean,
Magic, man.
Rob Halford sang with Ugly Kid Joe. I mean, he's
It's
forever in the
unbelievable.
history.
It is. It's magical, man. It is totally.
I mean, dude, like I said, Whit's one of his favorite singers of all time.
Yeah.
Is our first full length album singing on with Whit, in unison on a song of ours. And for me, as I wrote a lot of those lyrics. I was like, Rob's singing my freaking lyrics. This is
Right.
so cool.
That is
Yeah.
great, man. That's so cool. What is the writing process for you guys? Over the years, have you done it the same? Has it changed over the years? What was it like on the new
Huh.
record? Uh,
It's been, I think it hasn't changed. It's just been different. The ways we do it goes more here. Like for instance, this record was mainly Dave and Whit that wrote a lot, and I just wrote a little. But like America's Disappointed, I wrote a lot, and then there's songs where we all write together, and then there's like what we've always done in the past is like Dave and I are obviously guitar players, but we also Dave's a huge producer. I don't know if you know the history of Dave Fortman. He produced Evanescence and Slipknot and Godsmack and all this. He's like total tech wizard, and so he's a great songwriter, and he'll write these songs and just produce the F out of them. And he plays every instrument. He's one of those guys.
yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah.
can
It's
sing,
incredible.
can play, and he pisses
That's
me off. But
fun.
it's awesome to have him in your band. It's rad. And so
Yeah.
he'll literally send us these demos of like, let's say we're getting ready to make the record, and he'll demo songs out, and we're like, dude, this like sounds ready to go. Like it's done. Mine are all like garage band, jankety, clankety,
Right, right, right.
floppy bass, me trying to sing. And then Whit's got to be like, oh God, I don't even get that melody. What are you doing? And then and then of course, Whit actually has a really interesting way of writing. He does a lot of mouth riffs. So he'll have his, now that we all have a little
Wow.
recorder, he'll
Yeah.
just walk around, and he'll play it for anybody that's willing to listen. And he was actually playing it for Jeff Curran, who plays in a band called Dallas Frasca, who Whit has a side band with called Yellow Cake that they did a few years back. And they were hanging out, and they ended up in, I want to say Portugal together, hanging out, just the two of them, and they met a drummer, and they ended up jamming with this drummer in a parking garage. There was the guy had a jam room in a parking garage. It's in a video, and he's like, they're jamming full, amp, drums, opens the door, and you're seeing cars parking, like just an underground parking garage, like you'd see anywhere in the world. And they jammed that song, That Ain't Living. And he recorded it and sent it to me and Dave. And we're like, damn, that's like, there's a song. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
there's
great.
like I'm saying, we've written in a lot of different ways, and
Yeah.
there's one way, it's someone else actually hanging out with Whit. I mean, it's Whit's riff, but he
Right,
needed a
right.
guitar player to play it. And Jeff's Curran is this amazing, he plays left-handed, but with the strings flipped upside down. So It's the
Oh
weirdest thing.
man.
So he's playing like this, like me, but he doesn't flip the string. So he can pick up a right-handed guitar and play it
Right,
like Albert King did that, and that's one of the few players I know. So when he bends, he actually pulls down. Instead of
right,
he
right,
goes.
right.
Wah! And it's just weird as a guitar player. We've played with him on stage a few times over the years, and it's just weird watching him jam because you're like, everything's like opposite. It's so
Everything's in
trippy.
reverse. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's he's just got a great tone. He's just a great guy, and he's kind of like he's just another. I was joking to a friend. He's just another one of our other guitar players, so to
Yeah.
speak, in the band. It's mainly me and Dave, but we've had rotating members, and when we tour, and then we've got someone like Jeff, who's in Witt's other band that has now actually played on a record with us. He played a little bit of banjo on it. He played. He's Australian, which I don't know what's going on down there, but they're just rad Australians. They when it comes to music, they got their own kind of rad thing, and he plays the banjo. The guy's from like the outback, and he just played the banjo on, I think, Drinking and Driving. He played it,
Okay.
and he, like I said, he helped put together that song. So there's definitely he's playing guitar on that song too. He does the whole breakdown.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool to have all that different influence and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
different styles come in. It makes for a cool adventure. And this record is, man, this new record is fantastic. Um,
Thanks.
you guys called it quits
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
97 to 10, 2009, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and this record is the first since 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you do in that time? You guys are friends from what I can tell. Everybody, there wasn't any really harsh feelings among you
No, no.
guys. Yeah, yeah. The family come into play? What happened in that interim from 97 to
Um,
2010?
97. Well, going back, we had a lot of success early, and we sort of started going on this trajectory down. But believe it or not, we still were doing really good, like in other markets in Europe and stuff. And we were touring, and we had it going on till like the end of '96. And in all honesty, I think we were burned out a little bit on each other, on the whole thing. It was a very fast rise and a very intense 5 years of touring, making records, and having band member changes, and we had issues also with we had some internal issues, but it wasn't like people not liking it. It's just like things got a little, with management and stuff and
Right.
direction of the band. And then people started doing other things. Each member of the band started working on another project. And I kind of felt the writing on the wall, like maybe it's either time for a break or time to stop. And I actually was the one that made the call. And everybody was kind of like, okay, okay,
Yeah.
fair
Everybody seemed
enough.
to
We'll see what
kind of
happens.
meet it.
And the cool thing was, like, the second it happened, we were like, okay, all right, but we all just stayed, literally. So we're breaking up the band. So what are you doing for Monday Night Football? You want to come over?
Right.
It wasn't like this big,
It's cool.
it was sad. I have to say, I got a little teary eyed when the actual moment hit me, when we were all sitting in that room together talking about it and deciding, yeah, okay, it was I want to say it's either in Australia or India at the time. And like, the rest of us talked, and I said, well, I'll call Whit tonight and tell him. And, you get a little teary eyed, but at the same time, we are, like I said, it's like, it's a little sad, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, like I said, what are you doing on Monday?
Right,
And
right, right,
we've all stayed friends, and I would say we've all stayed pretty
right,
damn good friends, to tell you the truth. And other guys did go on to do some really amazing stuff. I mean, Shannon joined Godsmack eventually,
right.
and has had a huge, great, long career with them.
Yep,
Dave went out to produce and ended up producing, Evanescence, like I said, and Slipknot, and
right.
I mean, all kinds of rad bands. He did a lot of Phil Anselmo's stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, got a few Godsmack records with Shannon, and that's
Yeah.
actually that's how we got back together. Is they were working on a Godsmack record
Okay.
together, and like I said, they were great friends still, and they're probably sitting there, probably a few drinks were had, and this talk about, yeah, you're a big producer now. You have your own recording studio. At the time, Dave had built a recording studio,
Mhm.
and Shannon's like, and Dave were like, why don't we just call Klaus and Whit and do a record. So they called, and me and Whit weren't really doing anything at that time. I think Whit had ended his run with both Medication and Another Animal, and I wasn't doing anything, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it," you know. And Whit was
yeah.
like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we started. I got all my old demo tapes and started doing what I said, my crappy little GarageBand recordings. I think at that time was it even yeah, probably. And we did the EP, and then we stayed together since.
It's just awesome, man. I mean, that's cool to come back to it. Are you surprised that you know you've had great success since coming back? You know, the fans are there. You know, everybody's there, everything's intact. It's like you never left almost.
It
Uh
was real surprise the first tour in 2012 when we went actually showed up in Europe, and it was hit and miss. I mean, some shows it was like a few people, and then the next show we'd be like, dude, it's like 1993.
right.
There's like 1,000 people here going ape shit,
Yeah.
wearing our shirts. It's old shirts, you know. Like you're like, holy
Right.
shit. Like certain. It's really geographical too. Like we'll play a show in, let's say, Innsbruck, Austria, and there'll be like 78 people, and then the next night we'll play in Paris and there'll be 950. It's
Yeah.
like, and it's really weird, and you don't know if it's the promotion, is it just certain markets the band was bigger, what is it? I don't know. It's super hard to put it. I mean, art and music is so, like, I mean, there's bands that I love that my friends hate and vice versa. So it's like,
Right. Right. It's
and we were a
personal.
band that was a very love hate band. Kids that loved us. We had people that just trashed us, like other
Right.
bands and media and stuff. And I mean, that was happening a lot when we broke up. So we were kind of like, well, it'd be nice to get away from that for a while,
Right.
because this shit's starting to hurt my feelings. God damn it. We were young, we weren't even 30 yet, I think, when we broke up. So it was like, you still kind of, you have a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I definitely, like, it stung a little bit, especially when a band that you loved or a magazine that you loved put your bands down. You're like, fuck, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, that's for sure. Um, where's your musical journey start? You know, what's the first band that grabbed you and wouldn't let it go?
um,
Grow up with music in the house and stuff like that?
you know what? My parents were not. My dad played the harmonica, but just kind of for fun. And I grew up, honestly, with my parents only playing classical music, and the first pop band that I ever heard and got into was ABBA when I was like
Okay.
a kid, and I loved ABBA. Every I still do. They're
Yeah.
easily one of my favorite bands. But
Yeah.
in terms of wanting to, I started playing piano because my best friend at the time played piano, and I was like just jealous. I was like, I can't believe you can do that. Like, you can sit down and play a song and it sounds good. And so I said to my parents, I'd love to take piano. And a really good family friend of ours had a piano that she was trying to give away, and so she gave us the piano, and I'm like, that's perfect, I'll play. So that was my first musical thing. I think I was 10, 11. I started playing piano, and then I just got bored with it, and I started listening to rock and roll. My sister started bringing home AC/DC records, Led Zeppelin,
Mhm.
and she's a year older, and she turned me on to all the good stuff. And I was like, I was kind of contemplating, like, I could be a keyboard player in a rock band, but unfortunately
Right.
none of the bands I liked had a keyboard player. I mean,
Yeah.
Boston maybe,
Right.
yes, but I liked Zeppelin and AC/DC.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And then I had one of my good friends. I was smoking a lot of pot with him. And I would go to his house, and we'd be like sneaking around. We're teenagers, we're like, and he had an older brother. And I was probably baked. And I remember like walking by the hall, and the door was like ajar, and I heard Eruption on
There
guitar.
you go.
And I remember just like stop back, kind of pushed the door open, and there was his brother with a gold top Les Paul and a Marshall half stack playing Eruption. And I just stood
Wow.
there and was like, that right there is the raddest thing I've ever seen in
That's
front of
cool.
my like face. I hadn't even really known Van Halen yet. And I was just like,
Right.
I just kind of walked into his room and was, oh, what was that, man? He's lots of Eruption. It's Eddie Van Halen. And I was like, oh my God, can you teach me? And he said, yeah. And my sister had a beat up acoustic guitar, and I flipped the strings because I'm left-handed. Because he told me first thing, he's like,
Right.
he's like, oh shit, you're left-handed. You got to flip the strings. So I went home, flipped the strings, started learning some chords, came back, and then my parents rented a guitar because they said, we'll rent the guitar for 3 months from the rent place. you rent a little package deal for learners. You get
Right.
lessons and a rental amp, and if you stick with it for 3 months, we'll consider getting you one for Christmas or whatever, your birthday.
Nice.
And I stuck with it. I was pretty obsessed, and I would go to his house, and I kind of stopped being friends with his brother. I just was like, "Hey, what's up, bro? I'm gonna hang out with your brother, and we're just gonna play guitar." And that was it for me. I mean, that was like
Wow.
probably my biggest obsession I've ever had with anything in my life was just that moment. When you're that age, it's like you get into shit. You get
Eh,
into it.
Yeah,
It
man.
becomes
And it's cool. I mean, you actually, did something with it. Uh,
yeah. I mean,
Still
that's
doing something with it.
I know.
It's pretty great. Yeah, I listened to the band, and I listened to the early stuff, and yeah, I have to say Menace to Sobriety is a favorite of mine.
Mhm.
But the earlier stuff sounds a little bit different to me than the new record. Like, you
Yeah.
got That Ain't Living, Failure, Dead Friends Play has that groove AC/DC thing that you're kind of known for. But you have a little more serious and mature sound here going, Kill the Pain, everything's changing, things like that. Is there's it's a different Ugly Kid Joe than I would have gotten in 92 or 93, I think. Do you feel that way as well?
Yeah, and those are actually interesting enough. Those are Dave Fortman songs, and like I said, he's a real prolific. He can,
Okay.
he's produced so many bands, and he's super prolific. And what I mean by that is like he writes a lot of music, and he's worked with a lot of musicians, and he's exposed to a lot of music by
Mm.
being a producer. And so he
Yeah.
really like he'll like latch on to something that someone did in front of him, another musician, and be like, what is that? And he'll study it. Like he's a scientist. He's like a mad scientist.
Eh.
And he'll study like this weird tuning. He actually does a lot of strange tunings, and he'll bring in these songs that, none of us would have thought of to play a song like that. And that's, the musical part, I'm, me and Whit are pretty much real bonehead musicians. Like I said, ACDC, Priest, and just like riffs and
That's the raw
you know,
end.
yeah,
That's
and
the
and
raw
Dave
end
is,
of it.
is I have to say Dave has a more of expanded like musical array of whatever layers, and
Right.
so it's kind of a nice meld. And I think when you get to lyrics, also we have a lot more years under our belt. And when you're
Right.
24, 25, you've had this much. When you're 50, you've had this whole other, that second chunk of your life, after the band breaks up, after people start getting married, after people start having kids, people start
Right.
getting divorced, people start having drug and alcohol problems, people have death in the
Right.
family, people have whatever, like all this insane stuff that happens as you get older, and as you get, you live your life. It can, you get lyrics out of it, you get
Yeah.
stories, and as songwriters, you can't help but put them in your song.
Yeah,
um
yeah, it's a cool thing, man. Because it does have that raw edge. We
yeah,
get Ugly Kid Joe at 20,
yeah.
but with some serious side, some
Mhm.
serious lyrical maturity to it too, which is really cool. Any specific intention with this record? When you went in to write, did you say to yourself, let's make a little bit of a more mature record, or just say, let's throw more power chord guitar riff stuff in there, or was there any specific intentions with the record?
No, not in terms of the songs. I think the songs was like I demoed like 4 to 6 songs. We all each demoed songs. Whit came in with his ideas, and we just were like, let's just try to make every song. Let's try to finish every song as a demo and see which ones we like, and that'll be the record. Um, in terms of the sound, it was Whit's idea to get Mark Dodson, who did America's Least Wanted, who he's been great friends with forever, to do a record kind of more in the old fat. Not, we weren't using tape machines, we were using computers, but to do it more old fashioned, in the sense of what we would have done in the 90s, where no click track, no trigger drums, just everything mic drums in a room, a little bit more, you know, nothing's looped, everything's just played from beginning to end. And so in a way, so that was maybe the only thing we consciously thought of, was let's make a record that is recorded kind of the old way. um, and like I said, mainly without clicks, even though we had to use the click a couple times because of some loops and shit with drum loops, but you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah.
like we didn't, it was a little bit more like that was maybe the only thing we consciously said, and maybe make it like get the guitar sounds to kind of be like hard rock that you would have heard in the late 70s. There's a few songs that kind of have that, and that was fun
Totally.
because we always were more metal, but we can definitely do rock and hard rock, and like, and I explained that just the hard rock side too. And so yeah, there's probably less of the and more of the
Yeah.
and so like I said, it wasn't really that conscious, but those were the songs that were now on the plate at this time in our lives, and that's you know
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because it has a live kind of sound. It has
yeah,
a
it has a yeah.
real. No, it's not over polished.
Right. That was probably intentional. That's one of the few things we actually intentionally talk about.
Yeah.
Like I said, the songwriting, I don't think we really said we want to write songs like this or like that. We want to record them like this and like that, but the songs will just be what the songs are. And we had a few other ice song ideas that were more metal, but they just didn't pan out. So we went with the ones that were more that or more that. So
Yeah, it's great. It's a great variety of tunes. Dead Friends Play, an homage to all the legends.
a
We
lot, yeah.
heard stuff about Lemmy and Priest and Skinner. Um, Tell me about writing that one and picking those bands and how that all came about in lyrically.
Whit wrote that, wrote those lyrics, and it was like a process. Like he'd start sending me these texts of these different little sections, like the Eddie Van Halen lines, and a lot of it happened not too long after Eddie died. And Eddie, of course, I mean, we toured with Eddie for a few months, and he was wonderful. I mean, he was in our dressing room every day before our show, hanging out. He became like the dude who literally we all idolized, but in particular our guitar players. But believe it or not, Whit wanted to play guitar when he was a kid too. He just doesn't have the patience. He's the perfect lead singer. But Eddie, when I started, we were friends when I started playing guitar, and he went and started taking guitar lessons too. And he was like, "Nah, I don't want to do this. I can't play as good as Eddie Van Halen after 2 lessons. Fuck this."
Right, right,
But
right.
when we all met Eddie, it was like this really kind of a big deal for us. But Eddie made us feel so comfortable almost from the get go that by the third show we were like, "Hey, Eddie," it wasn't even. He would joke with him, we'd hang out. So it was a great experience anyway. And I think after Eddie died, I think it kind of like wigged us out a little bit because we kind of knew him, and
Right.
I think shortly thereafter, Whit started writing this song, and he started covering, all the people that, obviously Lemmy died not that long ago. Whit was really close to Lemmy, so I think with Eddie and Lemmy passing kind of near each other, Whit was kind of like he was actually talking about writing this song like an homage, and he kind of just line by line it started coming together. But the one about running with the devil and he's unchained, I was like, oh my god, that's
Yeah.
really good. And Whit is a really interesting writer. Like he'll just say something and write it, and then it'll stop, right? And I'll be like, oh, but wait, where? And then we're like, oh, let's fill in the blanks. With this one, he really started writing and really kind of like picking out each individual person that he was writing about and
Yeah.
putting it all together, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
Like I said, it took a little time, and it was like really thought out homage, homage to all
Yeah.
these great musicians that we've lost over the years, and
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, right? And so yeah, it was kind of like, and it was kind of a little nervous because we're like, oh, this is kind of a touchy subject. It's death. Death is always, and it's
Right.
death, real death. It's a true story, and that's always where you're like, whoa, we gotta hope people don't take this the wrong way. Like we're celebrating. We're actually just, it's
Yeah.
a total tribute to our fallen heroes, basically,
Yeah, and it
in rock and
definitely
roll.
comes across like that. Yeah,
Good,
I
because
mean,
that's what
it
it
is
is.
a great tribute. I mean, and again, it goes deeper. Hearing
Mm.
some of those song titles worked into it, and
Mm.
it's really really well written, and the instrumental is great. It's got that 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 raw groove to it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's cool. It's really cool.
yeah.
Um, is there a definitive Ugly Kid Joe song? If I have somebody that hasn't heard the band,
Mm.
is there a song in particular that kind of puts everything together?
On the
Uh,
new record or all the records?
all the records. You know, if I had time to play one song for somebody who'd never heard Ugly Kid Joe,
Oh man.
you
Well,
know,
that's a tricky one because we do. I mean, if you think about our two hits, right? Everything About You and Cats in the Cradle. I don't
right?
think you can get much more opposite from each other
Yeah,
on
they
those
are
two
pretty
songs. Like
yeah,
one's like this. I mean, it's almost a parody song, and the other is like
right,
a really deep song about a kid growing up with his father. So, and
right,
one's got sitar and acoustic, and one's got a
right,
funky rap at the end. Like it's like you can't. One's mature, one's super childish. So
right.
that's maybe what I would say is like there's some songs of ours you might not like, and there's some you might really like, and there's a lot of stuff in between. So, I mean, I could just say my favorites. I mean, I love like to me, Neighbor was kind of a really long sort of for me it was the story is very Ugly Kid Joe-ish, and
Right,
it's
right.
got and it's kind of that tempo that like we all grew up that kind of ACDC tempo and like a heavy riff
Mhm.
that anchors it, and then kind of lyrics that tell like a funny story. That was very that what I'd say is very good Joe. But then again, you go like, I mean, No One Survives is by far one of my favorite songs we've ever done,
Mhm.
and it's very different from Neighbor. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would say maybe listen to Neighbor, but then don't stop there. Try to listen to like three songs. I'd say get
yeah.
to three. No One Survives. Try that one, and then
That's
I don't
cool.
know. Then take your pick. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and it is tough.
Yeah.
This band is very tough to nail down. A lot of different things, especially on the new record. A lot of different looks you're giving us. It's really, really cool. And like I say, I love the Menace to Sobriety record for a lot of those same reasons. Um, at that time, their Seattle grunge thing was happening really heavy. Didn't get the support it should have, in my opinion. Um, you know, you were doing this thing while this huge thing was happening. And they just maybe didn't line up, and the record company kind of saw it that way, it seems. Um, did that catch you off guard that it wasn't promoted quite that way, the
Uh,
way that it should have been?
I wouldn't say it caught us off guard because we kind of saw the writing on the wall at that time,
Okay.
and a lot of things were changing, and our relationship with the label was changing, and obviously the climate and music was changing. I mean, I remember what I use as an example. The Motley Crue thing was bizarre. How they were one moment they were like the most talked about biggest band in the United States, and the next thing you know, record companies were like, "No, we're good. Like we don't even want to." Or radio stations were like, "We don't even play Motley Crue anymore."
Right, right.
I love Motley Crue, so I was like, "Damn, if it happens to them, we're
Yeah.
fucked."
Yeah, right.
Like,
Seriously.
so
Seriously,
we saw
that
the writing
that
on the
was
wall.
it.
We knew we were more lumped into the hard rock, hair band, hard rock,
Right,
more heavy metal hard rock genre than we would be in the grunge Seattle thing.
right.
And you especially saw like Everything About You. That's like
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
different than the
Yeah.
dark deep grunge thing. But yeah, so it was the writing was on the wall, but we at the time we kind of felt it already. So we're like, well, let's just make a metal record.
Okay.
Let's just go for it. And we just got Shannon Larkin in the band, who's a phenomenal hard rock heavy metal drummer,
Yeah.
um, arguably one of the greatest. And we started, we had a lot of pretty freaking heavy riffs that we were jamming on in the rehearsal room, and as soon as he joined the band, and it started to just kind of go into that direction, and we went with it, and we realized, you know what, if we have a hit, we have a hit, but we're
Yeah.
probably it's going to be an uphill battle either way. So
Yeah.
let's just make a record that we really want to make, and that's what we did. And
That's cool.
I thought
Yeah.
I thought it had some pretty, riff wise, it's one of my favorites for
Yeah.
sure. It's got
Yeah.
some really good,
It's
fun to play riffs. We still play a few of those songs every night. So
yeah, it's fantastic, man.
thank you.
Yeah, you ever considered at that time changing the sound a little bit to maybe fit into something else, go a little more Seattle with it? Was that ever a
I
discussion?
mean, I loved Alice in Chains. I mean, like to
All
me,
those
So
bands,
Damn.
probably.
I
Yeah.
wrote So Damn Cool, a lot of it, and that was seriously influenced by Alice in Chains. Just a really heavy riff with like a melodic vocal, because that literally was one of my favorite bands at that time.
Yeah.
When that first album, what is it, Facelift, I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that blew my mind. I mean, that was such a
Oh
great
yeah.
record. And so that was definitely an influence. So I considered Alice in Chains a heavy metal band. I mean, I never really thought of them as being grunge. I don't, I think that was more the flannel and maybe the topics of the songs was what was grunge about it. But that's a
Yeah.
great heavy metal band. And Soundgarden to me is a heavy metal band. So I didn't really even think about it. You know, Pearl Jam may be more of what we consider grunge. And I mean, Nirvana is just a great metal punk band. I mean, I don't,
Right.
grunge was just sort of labeled that was added later and by, I guess, maybe a writer somewhere, you know, came up with the word. But no, again, you know, I heard the Nirvana record for the first time and I was like floored. I was like, this is incredibly great hard rock. I didn't think of it as like, so I think if we said let's do a song like Nirvana, it wasn't because we wanted to be part of the grunge. It was because we loved the fucking band and what
Right.
they're
Right.
doing. It's like when you do a song that goes, that kind of sounds like AC/DC. Yeah, that's kind of what I love. So let's go with it. So
Right.
no, we never like thought about we want to fit more into what's popular now. Is more like, oh, if you heard that new Alice in Chains song, we should do something like that. That's really
Right.
cool. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, you've done stadium tours with Bon Jovi, Ozzy, Van Halen, like you said, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, Alice Cooper. You know, it goes on and on and on. You've done the biggest festivals, you know, with the Wacken and down a
Yeah.
little. Um, all of those things. Specific memories that come back to you doing that, experiences. I mean, those are tremendous experiences with, you know, some of your heroes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you know, what are your memories of that time? Is it, you know, all great times, crazy
And,
stuff?
oh, it's all fucking amazing. You know, our first big tour was opening for Ozzy and Motorhead. I mean, you know, we had
Gee.
done an EP, toured the clubs, and we get a call. Are you sitting down? Yeah, you guys got the Ozzy tour. We're like, that's it. I mean, me and Whit and I went to an Ozzy concert when we were like 16 together, you know,
Yeah.
and that was like, I mean, that right there. Again, a lot of stuff happened really early in our careers. That was like the things we dreamed about the most, and that was it. I mean, playing opening for Ozzy was always a dream because Metallica did it, Motley Crue did it. Like they called him Uncle Ozzy because he took out all the new metal bands, and so for us to kind of have that honor was just so cool. Like something no one can ever take away from us. You know, I remember telling someone that years later after the band had broken up, and like and they're like, I mentioned it, like, you opened for Ozzy? I'm like, yeah, for like 3 months. And they're like, no, like you're legitimate. Like I thought you were just some lame band. Like shit, but respect. Like that's legit. You know, like that's the moment. Like yep, it was like a full blown thing.
And
And then
that's,
I threw in and Motorhead opened for us.
yeah, yeah. And it's, you know, that's just the beginning. Like I said,
Yeah,
so many huge,
yeah,
huge,
yeah. I mean, we actually, it's funny because we, you know, a lot of obviously our biggest success was in the first whatever chunk, you know, from 91 to
right.
96, 97. And one of the biggest things we did was in 94, we went to Rio and played Hollywood Rock Festival at two festivals, one in Rio de Janeiro, one in Sao Paulo. And the Sao Paulo one was 80,000 people, the biggest show we'd ever played up until that time. And it was just insane. It was like everything you could, like, we get in the van or the bus thing to go to the stadium, and we're looking out the window and like, oh man, there's something's going on. We see all these sirens and we're like, all these motorcycles, like, oh shit, what happened? Did like, was there a terrorist attack? You know, what happened? And the person in the bus is like, no, you dumbass, this is your escort to the stadium. We're like, what? So we're like, wait, and there's cops zooming by, closing off streets to get us, and cop cars in front and back, you know, sirens everywhere to get us to the stadium on time. We're like, oh my God, this is legit. Like, this is hardcore. And we flew first class, which I think we'd never flown first class in our lives until that gig. So that was like the rock and roll. We, you know, we played the festival and it's 80,000 people and it's Brazil. And I don't know what's in their water, but the craziest fans ever. And it was almost like, I remember looking at someone from the label was there or something. Are we like really popular here? Because it seems like this whole crowd knew our lyrics and they're all, oh, no, it's all bootleg. You don't sell shit here. All those t-shirts, all those ugly t-shirts, that they have someone to make them in their garage. It's all bootleg. Like, you know, it's still, yeah, it's just a whole nother world. It's like this live
Wow.
thing. And it was so amazing So that was like one of the most mind-blowing moments. And then forward to 2012 or 2013, we were getting back on the road. We're doing clubs in Europe. We do a few festivals, and we end up in Poland at the Polish Woodstock. And it was over the actual festival's 500,000 people. And I
Oh my
truly
gosh.
believe when we actually got on stage, and it was pretty late, it was like a perfect time. It was already dark. It was like well over 200,000 people, the biggest show crowd we've ever played in front of. And same
Oh,
thing, just signs and shit saying, no, I hate everything about you or whatever. Like,
right.
I think even a blow up doll was floating around. This is 2013 or something. And we're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And it was like, goosebumps and playing, and just we had
Yeah.
these big smiles on our face because we're like, this is the biggest show we've ever played. And
Yeah.
we're like, washed up. We're
Well,
like,
that, yeah.
it's still happening. Like, this is a moment that you'll cherish for the rest of your life. And it's, you know, 2000, 20 years later, like, wow, this is incredible. So
Well,
yeah, there's festivals, and those big shows are, and of course there's a million other ones in between, but
right.
they're pretty incredible.
Well, especially the one after the time you went away.
Yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
That's got to be
yeah,
a great feeling. That's what I was
yeah.
saying
It was, and
earlier.
very surprising, because we're
People
like,
don't
over.
forget you.
Yeah, it was insane, and super grateful that we can still do it, and that people actually, yeah, that we still can. I mean, selfishly, that we still get to have that experience of playing on stage, and having
Absolutely.
it be to the point of, like I said, we played that show in Paris, and I remember texting my friend after, like, you'd be surprised. This feels like 93. Like, it feels like we're in the top 10. I mean, we just played a show in Paris, and it was like a week after our last show in 1993. It was like nothing's changed. It was bizarre.
Awesome.
I mean, the crowd's older.
Well,
Like, the
yeah,
crowd's
yeah.
older, but like the vibe. I mean, it was, yeah, it's crazy.
Everybody's into it, and
Yeah,
we didn't forget you, man. This is real cool. Totally. Um, who will we see in the band? You guys got the tour going. You're going
yeah.
from May 3rd to June 10th,
Mhm.
San Diego to San Antonio. You're
Yeah.
all over the place.
Mhm.
Both coasts. Uh, you got Zach Morris on the album, with
Right.
Shannon Larkin. Uh,
Yeah.
Shannon's on the album. Who do we see on tour? In the drum throne for sure. Zach.
It's no Cam
Ah,
Greenwood, who's
okay.
English. He's the youngest member of the band at a, what is he, 32 now or something? He's the kid. And he played, we had a one-off play in Portugal. Was it right before COVID? And Zach couldn't do it. So our manager Gav, our European sort of connection guy, was like, he's always hooked us up with amazing humans. And he's like, I got the guy. And we're like, okay, we're going with it. Cause he already hooked us up with Chris Catalyst on an earlier tour. And he was amazing, phenomenal guitar player. So the kid shows up. We did the one show with him. So it was like a day or two of rehearsal. We did a show, and it was like, oh, bye. And we didn't think, and I was like, I guess it went all right. I didn't even, it was just such a fast, I think there was it was just a pain in the ass. There was a bunch of shit that happened during that one gig. And we got back, and then Zach started getting a steady day job. And so he's like, yeah, I can do it, but I can't do long tours. And so when we were rehearsing for the last tour, Cam's name came up again, and I was like, I guess that guy was good. Like, it was literally like that. It was like, it was one show. I can't even remember really how good it was, how bad it was. It went well. I mean, the guy knew the songs. So we go,
Right.
yeah, let's go for it. So he shows up at rehearsal, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Like, it went over my head. And and then so he's playing the songs perfectly. His meter's amazing. He's just a great drummer. He plays with one kick, but he does the stuff, and it's pretty
Oh,
cool.
wow.
He does
Yeah.
really, really great with the kick work, with the 1 foot kick work. And then I didn't even realize it until I looked, and I go, oh, wait, you only have one? Because everybody we've ever played with ever has had the double kick pedal.
Right,
And so
right.
that was pretty impressive. Sometimes those little things where you're like, oh shit. And then we're playing. Wit wasn't at rehearsal. It was like the first day. We're just getting the tunes, the arrangements together, and we're playing
Huh?
a song. And I'm looking down and like kind of dialing in my head. We're playing whatever song it was, and I'm like, and all of a sudden Wit starts singing, and I'm like, Wit's here. I thought he wasn't coming till tomorrow because we were in Europe, and I thought he wasn't flying in till the next day. I'm like, oh shit! And I look up, and he's not there. And I'm looking around, and it's fucking Cam singing on his mic. He's singing the lead vocal part.
Wow.
And like I'm like, oh my god, I didn't know you could sing. He's like, yeah, I sing in a band. He's like Phil Collins,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he sings and plays drums in a cover band.
Wow.
And I'm like, can you sing harmonies and backups? He's like, yeah. And
Oh,
I mean, one of the coolest things that he does, basically he's our backup singer. He's fantastic, and he can do the Rob Halford parts in Goddamn Devil. I'm not even shitting with you. And Whit is like, you're doing that. And he's like, no, no. And he's like, no, you are. And so, but he'll be like, no, no. But then when it comes to being on stage, he never wilts at the moment. He's like, he just lays into it, and it's
oh,
pretty fucking cool.
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was like a total bonus from nowhere that this guy was an incredible singer.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he's a
That's,
great guy, and we're really excited because he's never been to the States. So
oh,
this is going to
wow,
be really
really?
fun for him. Yeah, this is going to be, you know, like when when you first get in a band, I have to say, of all the things, the travel is probably the biggest like bonus that you don't think about. When you just it's such a pleasure. It's so cool to be able to travel to different places and play and
Yeah,
and
but
and
it's tough too,
it's tough
right?
and it's
Yeah,
taxing,
yeah,
but it's so exciting. Like, I mean, I remember so well our first tour in Europe was just so amazing. And then of course when you end up going to like Japan or Brazil,
yeah,
it's just for the first time you're like, I think it's partly the excitement of being in a new place, but it's also the excitement of like, oh my God, music is what got me here.
yeah,
I'm not a
yeah,
tourist. I'm actually working and I'm playing here. And I think for him, it's going to be really cool doing a fully blown US tour, because just like Americans like dream of like going to Japan or touring Europe, playing
right,
Paris or London.
right.
European kids, they, especially the English kids, they're all like, oh, we always dream about touring the States, or the
Right.
Australians. They're like, that's like the big burrito or whatever you want to call it. Like, to
Right.
play the States is like the ultimate rock and
Yeah.
roll experience. And for
That-
us, it was like to play in, like Wembley and shit was always like the big thing.
right. Yeah, I think it goes back to like the Beatles, coming over
Oh
conquering
yeah.
America.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
it's
British
still
invasion, like,
yeah,
yeah, coming
yeah.
over.
It's still a thing
Yeah,
almost. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, man. I look forward to that. You're coming by me on May 18th. Uh
Nice.
Photographing the show too. I'm a photographer as well. So
Okay, great.
yeah, I can't wait, man. Goddamn devil for sure. I will
Yeah.
look forward to that.
Yeah. The inside, what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's way cool. Um, Tell me, is there something after all of these years and doing this and playing all those great shows and with so many great musicians, is there something you've always wanted to do that you haven't?
Open for AC/DC.
Ah, there you go. You guys haven't. Yeah,
Mm.
man, that is doable for sure. They got to get out there. You guys are out there. They got to get out there. Uh, that would be great, man. That would be way
And the
cool.
other dream, which will never happen, is to do the music for a James Bond film. Like, to do the Bond theme
Oh,
was always to be
yeah,
the coolest thing, like a big heavy Bond theme. But I'll be fine if we just get the AC/DC tour.
man. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Just.
yeah, yeah. Way cool, man.
But having said that, I mean, we literally, like, Whit and I were like, like I said, grew up together, listened to metal, and we were like, dude, that's really the only band just about left that
Right.
would have been on the. I mean, we opened for the Scorpions, Judas
Yeah,
Priest, Ozzy, Def Leppard. We've the
yeah,
Cult, Guns N' Roses. Like, we've
yeah.
done a lot, and more than we probably would have ever imagined. So
Yeah. I mean,
Van Halen, shit.
yeah, yeah. The Bon Jovis and the Alice
Motorhead, Bon
Coopers.
Jovi. I mean, it's just like it
I
just
mean,
keeps going, and that's the coolest thing about the festivals is you're like,
unbelievable.
dude, this is a funny one. We used to joke about it because we did a festival in Switzerland back in the day, and was Page and Plant were doing their tour,
Yeah, the no
and
quarter.
that's basic. I mean, like, well, that's Led Zeppelin. They were playing Zeppelin songs. It was Jimmy Page
Right.
and Robert Plant, and we were playing this festival in Switzerland, and we were the cleanup band. And what that meant is, like, the headliner would play, and then we'd come and do a 45-minute set after the headliner,
Right.
and they call it cleanup. But no one had left, and it was awesome. but we went on after Page and Plant. So for
They
years we
opened for
joked,
you.
we for years we joked, no, we didn't open for Zeppelin. They opened for us.
Right. I love it, man. That's great. Yeah. Oh man, I would love to see that. I'd love to see you guys on that big stage doing the AC/DC tour.
Yeah, thanks. We
That'd
would
be
too.
way cool. Yeah, too cool. Klaus, I can't wait to see you, man.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. May 18th at the Arcada Theater in St. Charles. But in the meantime, you guys are everywhere. Like I said, starts on May
yeah.
3rd. The new album, Rad Wings of Destiny. Yeah, everybody needs to check it out. Go see the band. I can't wait, man. Thanks so much for your time, man. This has been great.
Thank you. We appreciate it, and we're really excited. We haven't done this in 25 years, touring the states, and
Yeah,
I'm getting more and more excited every day as we're like, holy shit, we're actually going to do this. Like,
yeah.
we didn't know if this is ever going to happen, and it is, and we can't wait.
Yeah, it's cool. It's awesome, man. Like I say, I can't wait to see you and you'll be well, my friend. And yeah, it's less than a month, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Take
Thanks so
care.
much. You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks,
Have a
Klaus.
good. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.